Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Christine, and today I'm talking about cosmic cash flow, finding the hidden riches in your natal chart. So you may be surprised to know that your birth chart can help you bring more prosperity into your life regardless of what's happening in the external world. Now I'm sharing this now because the way we earn money is changing. And I'm already living this transition as I write this. And I have so much compassion for the collective that's going to begin to move through this. And I know some of you already are. This is about giving you peace of mind as we navigate through the uncertainty. Now, I can tell you that this transition out of my old 3D ways of earning money, which were a 9 to 5 job, contract paralegal work, hustling, depending on other people, all of those things are failing. I've been trying things in an effort to keep pitching fastballs to the universe in hopes of knocking one out of the park, but so far nothing from my old 3D paradigm works anymore. This is super frustrating, but there's so much more at stake in our transition out of the old 3D work paradigm. Now, you might be able to hang on for a while, but the parasitic way we've been drained by our work has reached its expiration date. And I think this is because of the changes happening as Pluto moves into Aquarius. But regardless of that, your natal chart is a great reminder that the Creator has given us everything we need to thrive in any situation. So what I'm about to share are the basics that I learned from astrologer Donna Stellhorn's Udemy class. It was an inexpensive class, and I would encourage you to take it if you are an intermediate astrologer. Beginners had a lot of trouble with some of the concepts. So I took the class in 2021 during the pandemic, and I used the next year or two to observe whether these principles worked in my own life. And they have. I have observed more money showing up based on certain planetary transits, and some of the others were very stable or even transformational. So let's talk about the amounts of money. Now, I'm not talking about gobs and piles. Like, you could win the lottery, but usually it just means there's more money than average. So it might be a good time for you to play the lottery. I mean, I'm not saying spend a bunch of money on the lottery. I'm just giving that as one way this could manifest. Inheritance, you might sell something. If you're in your own business, you might get a big contract. The potentials are unlimited here. So I've observed more money showing up. And so much of what I am sharing in this class is related to what I learned from her money class. But I'm going to expand on that and share with you what I learned and my own observations. So I hope you'll learn this or purchase the service from me. This is a really great way to invest in your future and use this to navigate changes in your life and then build upon it with your own experiences. Now, as always, it's best to take this information and then observe how it works in your own experience. So I wouldn't go taking huge financial risks the first time your money planets make an aspect. Just watch and see what happens until you're comfortable. So these are just a starting point for you to explore so many ways to use this information for your own unique purposes. Now, please note that I can't answer specific questions about your chart or planets without a consultation. I have to be looking at a chart to answer questions about your specific situation. So please see the post linked in the description box for options on purchasing these services. There are 3 tiers, and I'll get into that in a little bit. First, we have to talk about transits versus your natal planets. So a transit is happening now, or will happen, or has happened. That just means the planets are moving now. Planets are always moving, except for when we're talking about your natal chart. So your natal birth chart is a snapshot of where the planets were at birth, and those, of course, are not going to move. My particular money planets are Venus, Mars, Saturn, and Pluto. Now, Venus moves the most quickly, and her aspects to my other natal planets are frequent. She moves about 1 degree per day. And Venus represents love, money, beauty, the feminine, and things we value, and she rules Taurus and Libra. Mars moves about 2 degrees per day and spends about 2 months in one sign, except for when it's retrograde. Mars represents the masculine, the will, force, drive, action, war, and pushing things through, getting things done, initiative. Saturn moves about 10 degrees a year, and his transits can last a while. Saturn represents older men, boundaries, structures, accountability, doing the right thing, tradition, and no, being told no. Pluto moves about 2 degrees, maybe 3 per year, and these transits last a very long time. Pluto represents destruction, transformation, things below the surface that we aren't aware of. Think about plumbing, sewer lines under the ground, or even deep-seated psychological issues, things like paranoia, control, obsessions, power, paranoia. Those are the big ones. So, for example, when Pluto transits can really make you kind of wonder if you're losing your mind. It's intense. So, for me, money shows up fairly reliably with Venus and Mars transits and aspects. So, transits and aspects are when transit Venus and transit Mars aspect one another, or it can mean when transit Venus aspects natal Venus, Mars, Saturn, or Pluto. So here's some examples of aspects. So transit Venus aspecting transit Mars, transit Saturn, or transit Pluto can bring money. Transit Venus aspecting natal Mars, natal Saturn, and natal Pluto can bring money. Transit Mars aspecting natal Venus, natal Saturn, natal Pluto. Transit Venus aspecting natal Venus, natal Saturn, and natal Pluto. And transit Mars aspecting natal Mars, natal Venus, natal Saturn, and natal Pluto. So that's quite a few transits. That's a lot of opportunities to make money, more money than you might otherwise make. Now, we can also include Saturn and Pluto aspects to natal Venus and Mars, but it's much more likely that transit Venus and Mars will aspect the natal Saturn and Pluto because they move much faster than Saturn-Pluto moves. So Saturn transits usually bring rigidity or stability, which means you might think you're not going to have the money, but things work out. And while you're waiting for them to work out, it might feel like you're in a vortex where nothing works, and it might be stressful. Usually Saturn has a theme that shows up for a transit. And so, Saturn transits, for example, they usually last a year, if like an opposition square trine. So it'll make one pass over the opposition square or conjunction point, and then usually it'll go retrograde and then make a third pass. Sometimes it only makes one pass. So for example, I have Saturn trine Saturn coming up, and that's only going to get one pass. But these situations, and Saturn trine Saturn kind of just sounds like a nothing burger. Nothing's really going to happen. It'll be dead calm. Everything will be nice and stable. And sometimes the restrictions are there to help you. That's part of Saturn's testing and responsibility. So you may have to pass a test in order to get the outcome you want. So you might not get the money until you make the adjustment required in the transit or the aspect. Pluto is much more difficult to gauge because it moves so slowly. It's also possible that I just don't know the kind of adjustment required by Pluto. Pluto doesn't really negotiate, and it's possible that the money will flow later on as a result of tearing down the old structures in our lives. So now we're going to talk about aspects. So Donna taught in her class that the nature of the aspects didn't matter for increasing money. However, hard angles meant the situation would be stressful or delayed. Positive angles meant the situation would flow easier and things would just come together. So here's an example. These are examples in my own experience. Saturn trine Venus. I just finished one of these up last year. Things were nice and stable. The money just flowed. I had everything I needed. The trine is a harmonious aspect, and a Saturn trine is flowing stability with Venus. Now, the only caution with these harmonious transits is that you get lazy. Because it just happens and it flows, you might think you don't need to work hard on some of these things. But if you are really paying attention, you'll align with that. Either if you know, especially if you know you're going to want to put your feet up, you're going to get it all done beforehand and kind of just have it ready to push the button. But some of these transits can make you lazy. Jupiter is another one that can make you really lazy because it's just so easy that you might not feel like you need to try. And then just keep in mind that, when these transits pass, they take the luck or the money along with them. So strike while the iron is hot. Saturn square or Saturn opposite Venus is usually just no. It feels like punishment. I often get so frustrated. So I'm in Aries. And when we can't do anything externally, we tend to turn that stuff inward. And you might feel like crying. I've cried a lot before from a Saturn Venus square or opposition. But Saturn eventually relents and the money shows up after you've made the adjustment required. So while you're waiting, the situation is probably not going to be as bad as you might think. And this is the really interesting part about this is the mind fuck of being in that time period where you can't get what you want or you can't have what you need or what you think you need. And so it pushes you to go in some other directions and to try some other things. But there's a good chance that there won't really be anything collapsing because Saturn is not about disruption. Saturn is about structure and boundaries and stability. So there might still be a silver lining when things just remain stable until the transit passes. Hard aspects are squares and oppositions, and there are some other minor aspects that are irritating, like octiles and quincunx, also called a semi-square. The easy aspects are trines, sextiles, semi-sextiles. Conjunctions are usually positive, but remember, your mileage may vary. We each have a unique signature and path. Now we also need to talk about orbs, and this is the distance between the planets. So for a natal chart analysis, Donna says that an orb of 7 degrees can be used. This is kind of a total of 14 degrees because 7 degrees applying and 7 degrees separating. So if your planet is at 7 degrees, that means 0 to 7 degrees and 7 to 14 degrees are all potential ways to make money, more money than you might normally make. Now, note that there isn't one generally accepted distance for orbs or when you'll feel the influence of a transit. This particular orb is wide, and I haven't seen this particular principle in any other area of astrology. You'll just have to see how it plays out for you. Now, astrology really is multidimensional, and there are so many ways it's used, and all of them have value, and many of them are valid. And this is why you really should observe what happens in your own experience. So, in addition to my money planets, I also have a natal Venus sextile Mars, suggesting that I have opportunities to be financially successful in life generally. And these have an orb of 2 degrees. So, my natal Mars is at 24 Leo, and natal Venus is at 26 Gemini, which are sextile to each other. So even though they are in 2 different signs, far apart, they form a positive angle and they're only 2 degrees apart. The money houses. So the money houses in your astrological chart for everyone are the 2nd, 8th, and 11th houses. Each of these has a different kind of money. So the 2nd is earned income, the 8th is other people's money, and the 11th is about money through friends, teams, society, connections, the collective, the public, the people out there. So the next question I want to ask you about is your money blocked? So this happens when we're off track and we need to realign. And there's no judgments here. I just don't think the universe judges anybody. It's all based on consequences, cause and effect. And we're given multiple opportunities to course correct. So, and I think many of us, this is what's happening to many of us, is that we're being realigned with the new abundance paradigm. And, you might also have too much stuff, whether it's physical items, clutter, or if you are too busy and you have too much going on in your life, you're too distracted to see opportunities for more money. And actually, being blocked is a gift from the universe, as shitty as that sounds, because the universe wants you to get on track. It does that by blocking you in many areas of your life so that it sort of limits your options so that you find the right thing for you. So ultimately, when you know yourself and your own money planets, you begin to see how the Creator has given you special tools to thrive, but you can get distracted and miss it. As you continue to choose peace and stability in your life, the money flows much easier. So let's talk about how to find your money planets. So this is going to get confusing for some of you, and that's why I offer this service. But you first need to know your birth date, time, and the city where you were born. So look at your birth certificate, ask your mom, find out what time you were born for the most accurate results. If you don't know your birth time, we can still see opportunities in your chart. It's the most accurate based on your birth time. So then you can go to AstroSeek, that's astro-seek.com, or Cafe Astrology, and get your birth chart. In order to run your chart there, though, you're going to need your birth date, time, and the city you were born. So when you get your chart, take a look at it. So you're going to see it looks kind of like you'll see the zodiac. The outer ring is probably going to be the zodiac signs. The inner ring is going to be your planets and where they're located. And then there's often a third ring on the inside that has numbers 1 through 12, and those are your houses. So take a look at the cusp, which is the start of each of the houses for the 2nd, 8th, and 11th houses. Now, they're not going to be perfectly lined up with the zodiac sign. So you're going to have to look at the zodiac sign where the cusp of those houses sits. So if your second house begins at 18 Taurus, Taurus is Venus ruled, and so therefore Venus is a money planet. If one of your house cusps are located in a sign with 2 rulers, such as Scorpio, Mars and Pluto are potentially both money planets. And that's because Pluto was the ancient ruler of Scorpio, and Mars was the ancient ruler, and then Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio. But because Pluto moves so slowly, it will likely be that the personal planets will aspect that planet by transit instead of Pluto moving. So Aquarius has 2 potential rulers. Saturn is the ancient ruler of Aquarius, but then when Uranus was discovered, it was considered the modern ruler of Aquarius. I suggest you notice which of these 2 planets bring you money to get the answer. Now, I'm an Aries rising, and my chart starts at 11 degrees of Aries. My 11th house cusp is actually in Capricorn, and Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and that is why Saturn is one of my money planets. So, once you've identified your money planets, then you know what to look for. So you can use a free astrology program like an AstroSeek or Cafe Astrology to look at your own horoscope for the month ahead, or however far you want to look, and look for aspects to those planets, and that's how you know there will be potential opportunities to make more money. So here are my offers. If you prefer to have some help with this, I have 3 introductory offers. So I will identify your money planets, write a report for you. Now, I'm doing all of this work by hand. These are not computerized reports. And where I'll discuss your planetary signatures and potentials in your natal chart and how to take advantage of the future transits. The service is $99. You can add an optional phone consultation for $49. If you'd like a 12-month forecast with specific dates and times, that is $199. Includes the interpretation of your natal chart and the phone consultation plus the 12-month forecast. So for these services, I'll need your birth date, location, and birth time. It will be more difficult without your birth time, but still possible to identify your money planets. Astrology, again, is multidimensional, so drawing a chart without a time is still going to produce valid results. You can order these services on my website. I'll put a link in the description box. Once you make payment, I will confirm receipt, and please allow 5 days to get your information back to you. Again, that link will be in the description box. I hope this information serves you on your journey. I'd love it if everyone felt a little less uneasy about these financial changes that we're going through, and this will hopefully give us all some peace of mind. Thanks for watching. I'm Christine, and I'll catch you in the next video.